Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to this special episode of Lazio Lounge. It's still June, and Lazio fan already are struggling, already having a terrible summer. Alasdair, this time, usually we wait July for go to panic mode, but Lotito didn't waste time this time, right? We started immediately. It's the 6th of June, and Lazio has no more the manager for the first squad. Igor Tudor resigned last night, but rumors pop out already yesterday in the afternoon saying that the manager have decided to quit the Lazio. So, what's your reaction? What happened?
Yeah, well, often in the summer with Lazio, we complain about them taking far too long for anything to happen. But this year, we can't complain about that, can we? Because this has happened 3 days after we've done our season review podcast, so it's moving quite fast. We did talk about Tudor at the end of that podcast, and this, I guess, it's not as huge a surprise as when Sarri walked, for example. There's clearly been tension building since the end of the season between Tudor and the club about how they see the future, particularly the roles of guys like Rovella and Guendouzi, Isaacson, guys who the club spent a lot of money on last summer, who he didn't particularly rate. And lo and behold, he resigns. So 2 resignations in the space of 3 months. I tweeted last night, it's actually quite impressive for him to break down relationships both with the players and the club hierarchy. And actually, you can add into that the Ultras Lazio group who held up a banner against him yesterday as well. In the space of just 3 months, to break down all these relationships so spectacularly that it forces a separation is quite impressive, Vittorio. I mean, I guess that's it in a nutshell, isn't it? It's a question of relationships here. That's why this has failed.
Well, the Leeds shirt is a little bit has a little bit of sense because only Bielsa lasted less than Tudor, right, at Lazio. This is embarrassing. But so what happened was Lazio, or better, Fabiani, Lotito, and Tudor had a meeting. What was it? 2 days ago. They had a dinner together, and it looks like they were planning for the future. This was the title. Then they had another meeting the morning afterwards. Even though Lotito wasn't there, he was campaigning for the European election, so wasn't there. And then Tudor flight back to Croatia, and rumors were that they didn't find a solution, basically, as you were mentioning. Tudor said, I want the team built for me. I don't think Rovella, Guendouzi, Isaacson are players that could adapt to my type of football. So if you want me, you need to sign me these players and sell those players. And Lotito obviously said, well, wait a minute. We spent last summer, not 10 years ago, 15 millions on Rovella, 14 on Isaacson, another 13 on Guendouzi. We want these players to stay, so you should adapt to these players. They're good, etc. And Tudor simply said, well, I can adapt on Rovella maybe, but not on the others. In the meantime, Guendouzi asked to leave if Tudor was staying. And so pretty much I thought Lotito was just waiting for Tudor to resign. We know Lotito will never fire a manager because that means that he will have to pay 2 managers at the same time. And this is simply what he doesn't want. So credit to Tudor because let's be honest, starting the season in this situation was going to be a failure, right? It was never going to work. So
yeah.
for the club and for the manager, this is the best solution.
Absolutely, you're right. And I was worried that this would have been the ultimate Lotito Lazio standoff, where you've got a coach who doesn't want to be there and a club who doesn't want the coach to be there, and you just continue anyway because nobody can agree on any other way of doing it. So yeah, in that regard, it's good. I think the club has a lot to answer for here because, I hate to say I told you so, but this is something we have said from the absolute start, that this is the problem. They just didn't stop to think when they made this appointment. They didn't stop to think. There was, 24, 48 hours between Sarri resigning, which caught them by surprise. That wasn't something that they expected. and appointing a guy who plays a completely different style of football, who has spent the last 3 months basically playing Russian roulette with his starting lineup to try and work out which players he can use in which positions, to try and change this team from a 4-3-3 to a 3-4-2-1, and ultimately just doesn't have the squad for it. And we knew from day one, we knew that he didn't have the squad to play this football. And from day one, that was going to be an issue. So, okay, you can talk about Guendouzi and Rovella, you can talk about the guys you spent money on, but actually it's kind of, it doesn't matter as much as it's being made out to matter, because even if you take them out of the equation, you're still going to have to make huge changes to this squad to get it anywhere near to playing Tudor style of football. It was always going to happen, this.
Not only, but can we say that Tudor left every single club he joined? Verona, he quit because he wasn't happy about the program of the next season. Juventus, when he was the deputy of Pirlo, and he quit when he found out that Pirlo was giving more power to Baroni. Olympique Marseille, they finished third, and he was able still to leave the club after the season just because the summer transfer weren't what he wanted to be. So you knew that you were getting a manager who was particular, I would say. And we already have an owner that it's very difficult to cope with. You had Tudor in the mix. It was pretty clear that this wouldn't work or wouldn't be a long-term solution, right? I mean, I quoted Bielsa because I thought the same exactly thing when Lazio signed Bielsa. These are two personalities that are due to clash sooner or later, right? And it happened after 3 months.
The difference being Bielsa was intelligent enough to realize very, very quickly. And he got out of there before his plane had even landed. But yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's been a bit of a waste of everyone's time. I think the option of waiting to the summer with some sort of interim coach always made more sense to me. Here we are. I mean, look, at least he didn't do terribly, like I was saying in a couple of podcasts ago. The actual results-wise, what has happened with Tudor, considering these huge changes that have had to happen, it's not been bad at all. In fact, his team's been one of the best in Serie A in that spell. But just the rest of everything else was heading for disaster, really, the way things were going. So Vittorio, now, I mean, this is only going to be a short podcast today, but we've got to rattle through a few of the names that people are now going to be wanting to hear. In the papers I've been looking through this morning are talking about this almost being a done deal for Marco Baroni. Do you want to introduce Marco Baroni to people who perhaps haven't been paying attention to Serie A relegation battles in the last few years?
I'm leaving the chat. I don't want to talk about Baroni. No, seriously. I mean, just to give you a little bit of context, Baroni was interested by Cagliari, Udinese, Monza. I mean, these are not three teams fighting for the Champions League, right? These are two teams that got stayed in Serie A in the last game, and Monza that is, halfway through the table. This is a manager who had a good season, to be honest. Nobody was expecting Verona to stay in Serie A. But, I mean, this is just his first good season in Serie A. He's 61, something like that. I mean,
60, yeah.
I mean, really, are we going to sign Baroni? Rumors yesterday was that Lotito called Allegri. Now, I'm not happy about Allegri. I don't like his type of football. But compared to Baroni, that's definitely better, right? Sarri could come back. That would be great. I mean, Baroni would be not a disaster, but the sign that, okay, guys, we tried to reach a Champions League. Now we're going back to the 8th, 9th position in the table.
I'm not as negative as you are about Baroni, but I do think there's definitely an element here of it being the flavor of the week kind of situation where he's just masterminded this very unlikely survival from Verona, where they changed their entire squad in January, and he's somehow managed to keep them up. In recent years, he's done good things. Took Lecce up, kept them in Serie A. He took Benevento back-to-back promotions, but he is, like you say, usually with Serie A coaches, or Italian coaches, I should say, rising through the ranks, you tend to go from those kind of Serie B promotion jobs into the kind of lower table job, then into the kind of mid-table, I don't know, your Torino, your Genoa, that kind of job, before you then get appointed by a Lazio or a team higher up the table. So it would be a huge leap for him, because he's had a long career, like you say, he's 60 years old, but he's not had any experience of this, not just the pressures of working at a big club, but also the actual day-to-day realities of juggling a European competition in midweek, for example. Juggling bigger personalities, perhaps more difficult. I mean, like the Luis Alberto is a great example of the kind of player you sometimes have to deal with at a club like Lazio. So there is that. I mean, I think the more attractive thing about him is that after two very systems-based coaches who have both resigned, he is not a systems-based coach. He's a lot more flexible. So he would be able to actually look at this team and decide the formation based on the players rather than vice versa. And he has, even this season, played with both a back three and a back four. And yes. I think now, after seeing what's happened with Tudor and with Sarri, that is quite an attractive proposition, probably.
But with Sergio Conceicao available, I think you should try to sign Conceicao.
Yes.
Then, I mean, if he decides to go to Olympique Marseille, then you have plan B. That could be the Zerbi. He's still available. Or try Allegri. Baroni should be your last option. I mean, Baroni for me is just above Miro Klose. Right?
I think that the club has to show ambition here, though. I mean, that was part of the reason. I mean, of one of many reasons I wanted them to wait till the summer in the first place to make an appointment, was because it was already clear there were going to be a lot of kind of coaches available this summer. There's even more now, although some have obviously now taken jobs. But Conceicao wasn't going to be one of them, and now he's there. And this is the guy we were talking about 3 months ago when we were talking about new Lazio coaches, dream coaches. For me, they've got to show ambition. They've got to go for the big name. Baroni isn't the big name. He's like a guy you can maybe settle for, take a chance on. Obviously, wouldn't be as expensive. But I think after having Inzaghi and Sarri in the last few years, after being in the Champions League knockout stages twice in the last few years, the club has to show more ambition than starting that far down the ladder. I think going for Conceicao for me has to be your number one. I disagree on Allegri. I do not want Allegri anywhere near Lazio. I think that guy is finished and would drag this club backwards. So I don't want him. But Conceicao, he's available. He's Laziale, he's the obvious choice, right? If it's possible.
Yeah, and not try it at all. It's send a bad message. And I agree with you. I mean, Allegri would be terrible. He's finished and expensive. But compared to Baroni, I mean, seriously, everybody. And, the thing is, if you go and sign me a new manager, a rising star manager, I don't know. I mentioned the Zerbi because he's available. That would be completely different, right? Palladino, that was available till 2 days ago, would have been completely different, right? He's young, rising, interesting, modern type of football. That's different. Baroni is an old manager who doesn't have a type of football, who had one good season in Serie A. I fear Baroni is the yes man that Lotito is looking for, right? Finally, a manager who doesn't complain, hey, I'm going to sign you this 4th division player. And Baroni is going to say yes, right? Tudor, obviously we knew he wouldn't say no, absolutely not. I want this player. And Sarri the same. So I hope it's not the reason why we're signing Baroni is because he's not going to complain about the signing. Because, I mean, Conte is signing for Napoli. I don't think Napoli is going to have a terrible season next year. Juventus Thiago Motta, they're going to have a terrific season. Next season is going to be very complicated, and you show up with Baroni as your manager. I mean, we are destined to arrive 10th, 11th next season with Baroni. So, yeah.
Oh, that's scathing negativity there. What about Jurgen Klopp? Let's get on the phone, see what we can make happen.
By the way, we forgot to mention, I don't have to buy the shirt to, who was it that said Lazio will finish in the Champions League?
Have you only just remembered that?
Yeah, this is my mind. I'm getting old.
Yeah.
If Klopp signed for Lazio, I mean, it's impossible. He already said that he's gonna relax for a couple of years, but I mean, he would never do it. Never.
What do you think? I mean, just to, I think we've run through most of it now, but just to wrap up, what do you think about this chat around Sarri coming back? Both, what do you think in terms of how likely that is, but also what do you think that's a good idea given what's already happened?
I think that would be the better solution for Lazio, to be honest with you. And the thing is, Luis Alberto is gone. Ciro Immobile is on the bench. I think Sarri could come back with more power now. So yeah, that would be the question is, would Sarri accept to come back? I'm not sure about that. And obviously, I'm not sure Lotito will call him back. But for me, seeing the names that have popped out in less than 24 hours, Sarri is definitely the best.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think going backwards doesn't feel like going forwards very often. But in this case, I think people have probably been able to take the time away from Sarri to appreciate that things were pretty good for quite a while under Sarri. Clearly, this season wasn't, and he's spoken at length himself about why that was. I think he's had a bit of soul searching himself. So you would hope that that would mean if he did come back, things would have to get a bit better, just because there's a greater understanding, really. And in order for the club to appoint him, they would surely have to be at a stage where they're willing to accept the points he raises in terms of the concerns about how the club is run and how the squad is and so on. I find it quite hard to see, just because of Lotito and how difficult he is as a personality, whether he would accept that to happen or not. I don't know.
Well, the thing is,
I just hope they don't rush it. That's the main thing. They just did with Tudor. They don't need to appoint Baroni in 48 hours here. I think they can. Obviously, you need to make a move because there are coaches only available for a certain amount of time, but you really need to think ahead this time. Learn the lesson. Look at the players you've got. Look at the budget you've got. Think about what your ambitions are and make the right choice. Don't throw yourself into this decision.
You know what? The only thing that gives me hope is that Sarri did an interview after he resigned, and obviously the question about Lotito pop out, obviously, and he didn't have hard feelings. He basically said, Lotito is a nice guy, I had a very good relationship with him, which, if you go back and look to all the former Lazio manager, nobody said that, right? I mean, Petkovic never said, well, Lotito was a nice owner, or Delio Rossi, something like that, right? So this gives me hope, even because he rejected Panathinaikos, which makes sense, obviously. He rejected, what was it? An English club. I don't remember which. So I think, yeah, maybe. So he's waiting for the right opportunity, or maybe he's waiting for some cleanup in Lazio. Kamada left, Luis Alberto's leaving, Ciro is on the bench. All the players that had problem with him are pretty much all gone, or not in the power position anymore. Guendouzi, it looks like he commands the locker, and he's a pro Sarri guy. So, crossing fingers. I'm not saying he's coming back. I think it's still very difficult. But my God, Baroni should be the last option. I mean, Tommaso Rocchi would be better probably at the end than Baroni.
Do you think Sarri's waiting for them to sell Luis Alberto, and he's like, okay, now yeah. Okay, well, that'll do for today, but we just wanted to do a quick emergency podcast based on the big news, and I guess whenever we do find out who's coming in, we'll be back again.
Yeah, crying for the new signing of Lazio. Well, let's hope not. Let's hope not. But anyway, thanks, Alasdair, for joining me. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Did we cheer you up after what happened yesterday? I don't know. We hope so. Let's hope we come back with better news, right? More encouraging news in the coming days. Even because, Alasdair, Lazio is looking to sign players. I mean, you don't have the manager and you're already signing players. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
It says a lot about the policy, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It says an awful lot. Yeah.
Anyway, will be a discussion for another podcast. Thank you again, guys. And we'll be back when we will find out who's going to be the new Lazio manager. Take care.